I think the first time I actually got to see it, and warning, she's ugly as first see it. Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. So I am filming this spur of the moment. My spirit is speaking to me, is telling me, girl, you owed them this information. Get your ass up and film this video. And today we're talking about my SRS experience, my bottom surgery experience from pre, during, and post. I am currently a little over 1 year post-op at this point, so I have a little bit of time post to be able to share with you my experiences after the surgery. Obviously, I'll talk with you about the pre-portion in terms of how I arrived at the decision to get the surgery, and then I'll talk to you about the experience in depth in terms of while it was transpiring, basically. So yes, please know that this video is spontaneous, so my hair is crazy, this crazy tan, my apologies. Like, anything you see in the background that's crazy, the perfectionist in me is screaming, but I'm so happy that I'm just doing this on the fly, talking about it and getting it up, because I promised myself and I promised a couple people that I would share this information. And you know, I've gone back and forth about whether I want to put my personal business and experience with this in particular out onto the internet, and I feel that it's important. I feel like for me, I needed to see just a regular girly talk about her experience with this, and it probably would have triggered or helped me arrive at my decision a little bit quicker. I actually am really thankful that I have a really close friend who transitioned before me, so like basically did a lot of the transition process a year before me. So, you know, a lot of my fears and trepidations about transitioning or just confusion, I felt like the sisterhood that we had allowed me to be able to feel comfortable with opening up and asking questions and just feeling like I'm on the journey with someone else, because it's scary. If you're on this video, then maybe you're thinking about undergoing some kind of surgery. For me, the only surgery that I've had is bottom surgery, so that's the only experience I will be sharing. But maybe you're interested in having facial feminization surgery. Maybe you're interested in having breast augmentation surgery. Any kind of surgery that, gender affirming surgery that you may be interested in, this may speak to you, because it is a process mentally, and it is a actual tangible process of from start to finish in terms of things that you need to think about, things you should be aware of. Disclaimer, I am not a medical professional. You should seek the advice of a medical professional. I'm talking a clinician. I'm also talking a therapist. So my arriving at the decision to have this surgery was from years of therapy. So you should actively have a relationship with the therapist. I almost feel like you have to have the recommendation of a therapist for many, you know, insurance requirements for sure will require you to have a medical professional basically diagnose you with dysphoria and recommend that you have the surgery. But yeah, so we'll get into all of the details, but I wanted to just quickly introduce that and bring attention to the fact that I probably look like a crazy person, but it's okay. It's okay. So let's get into the bread and butter, the meat and potatoes of this conversation, right? Let's start from the beginning. Let's start me confused. And for me, my story starts at the top of the pandemic. I think the pandemic really was the trigger for me, where I had a lot of time to have moments of introspection, sitting with myself, thinking about my life, thinking about who I am, how I present myself, and just overall being confused with where I'm at in my life, right? Just not feeling like something doesn't feel right. Like I just don't feel like myself. And really just tussling with that, wrestling with that a bit, trying to figure out like, what do I need to do to feel like myself? Because I feel like it was holding me back from doing anything. Like, I feel like I have dreams, I have aspirations, I have things that I want to accomplish, but it was this nagging thing that I just couldn't put my finger on that was holding me back from doing anything. I just felt stuck, right? So I sat in this very room that transformed quite a bit over the course of the pandemic, because pretty much everything that you see behind me was acquired during the pandemic. I completely renovated this room, or refurnished. I didn't really like do anything as far as the actual structure. I just basically cleared out all of the old furniture that I had and purchased new big girl furniture. Like, it was time for me to grow up. It was time for me to get rid of some of the college furniture that was still hanging on, just some of the furniture that was hanging on by a thread, literally. Some of this furniture was like, what the hell, girl? Let's toss it. So sitting in this room, transforming my life, really thinking about the things that are important to me, I started to dip my toe in the pond of identity and trying to figure out exactly what it is that wasn't ringing true or authentic about how I'm presenting myself, how I am moving about in the world, right? I just feel like there was a dissonance, there was some incongruence in terms of how I was presenting myself and how I felt on the inside. And as I explored that, again, I was fortunate to have a friend who had started the process of transitioning and sharing a lot of her journey, which was also really captivating to me. It really started making me think about myself and like, maybe I need to sit with myself and think a little bit more about how I am presenting myself, like, or who I am, right? So as I started to think about this process, I lost my dad in 2021. In the summer of 2021, my dad passed away, and it was very traumatizing for me. I think most people who have a decent relationship with their parents are traumatized by the loss of a parent. So it was very traumatic for me, but in true me fashion, I just pushed forward. You know, I grieved in the moment. I took about a month off from work to just grieve and to plan his memorial with my mom. We had the memorial, and then a week later I was back at work, and I started to just go about my days again. However, we were still in the thick of the pandemic, and I knew that it was another trigger that made me think about your life, think about who you are and what you want out of your life and things of that nature. And it was in the fall that I finally made the decision to speak with a therapist, get a clinician to discuss HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and to see what my options are. I didn't have a clear picture in my head in terms of me being a trans woman. I just knew that I feel that how I'm presenting physically did not align with how I felt inside. Internally, I felt like I had more of a feminine energy, and externally, I appeared more masculine, and it just was a source of dysphoria. I didn't even really fully understand and grasp dysphoria until I started exploring HRT a bit and realized, like, oh my gosh, like a lot of these feelings of just not really loving the reflection that I'm seeing in the mirror, it made me tap into that. It's always been there, but it's something that I had just suppressed for so long to just exist in this world that I didn't remember that I was dysphoric. I know it sounds crazy, but it's honestly the weirdest feeling to rediscover dysphoria, right? So I rediscovered my dysphoria, worked with my therapist. I got on estradiol, 2 milligrams, just to see how things would go, right? but I didn't make any declarations. I didn't come to any conclusions about me being trans or wanting to transition in any way. It just was me moving more in a feminine direction, but still presenting as myself, right? That's how I explained it to myself in my head. So I did that for about 3 or 4 months, and I finally came to the conclusion. It was around Transgender Day of Visibility, I remember. So that was in March. So I started HRT October of 2021. Around March of 2022, I came out to the Golden Girls. Shout out to y'all. It's a small group of friends that I have that have really been extremely supportive in this journey for me. But I came out to them first of anyone to let them know that I'm a trans woman. Like, I identify as a woman and I intend to transition and present as such. For me, how I feel that I would like to present as a woman. Because let's be clear, man, woman, or anything in between, you are allowed to express your gender however you'd like to express it. So there are no rules. Despite what society tells you how you should present and what your role is, no. Okay? So I'm here to debunk that for anyone who feels that pressure. No. Okay? But for me, as I started to unpack a lot of my dysphoria and things that I had suppressed so deeply in my soul and spirit, that I started to get a clear picture as to who I am and what I want to look like and what I needed to do to get to that place, right? So I already was on HRT, and I was working with a therapist to really unpack my discomfort with presenting as a woman and what that would mean. So people who've known me for a while, particularly my family, was something that I really struggle with how I was going to reintroduce myself to my family, because I knew that as my transition was to progress, they would physically see differences in my appearance and be confused, and it would require some explanation that I just didn't feel comfortable providing in that moment. So it was tough for me. The first space that I actually came out in was my work environment. So I had lovely coworkers at the time that were very open, accepting, and maybe even if there were people that just didn't understand or weren't necessarily accepting, they were always respectful. I never experienced any disrespect. I think a lot of people were more curious and just wanted some more information. I did receive some questions that were probably a bit intrusive, but because I didn't feel like they were coming from a malicious place, I didn't feel like uncomfortable with answering those questions. But yeah, so I did that. This is, again, all before we even get to the surgery. So I know I've been talking for a long time, but you have to understand that before you make the decision to undergo a surgical procedure like this, there are a lot of things to consider and a lot of steps that you should take before you actually get the procedure. It's a complex thing. I still sometimes am wrapping my brain around this entire transition process, not just exclusively my SRS experience, but the entire transition has been, it feels like a bit of a dream, if you will. So that's why I'm taking the time to explain everything that is transpired before I even got to the surgical procedure. So apologies in advance if it feels like I'm talking a lot. There are timestamps below, so if you don't care about any of these steps leading up to the surgery, you can always click on the timestamp down below and go directly to the surgical process. But I really hope that you listen to the whole entire process, because I think every step is important. But anyway, sorry y'all, my dog is like huffing and puffing and making noise. It's kind of hot in here. I might be a little glossy, but yeah. So anyway, yes, so I start to come out in different spaces and places to people. I've been taking the hormones, so I am starting to see some changes, some breast development. You know, the breast development started happening for me about 4 to 5 months in, but I think they generally say around 6 months is when you start to see significant, if you're going to see significant changes, you'll start to see them, you know, between 6 months and a year. If I'm not mistaken, don't quote me. I'm not the medical professional, but I'm just talking about my experience. But yeah, so I started to come out in different spaces to people and let them know about me transitioning and the steps that I'm taking. And at the time, I wasn't fully committed to undergoing any kind of gender affirming surgeries. I just wanted to see what the hormones would do. I think a lot of medical professionals even advise that you are on HRT for a year to see how your body reacts to the hormone, what kind of development you have before you make any decisions with surgical procedures. So I believe that's a prerequisite. But again, I'm not a medical professional, so you need to seek the advice of a medical professional for that. But I'm fairly certain that you do need to be on HRT for a specific amount of time. And that is because they want you to allow your body to naturally develop and transition before you start surgical procedures. So I was on HRT for a bit, talking with my therapist, just talking about my experiences as a woman, and coming out as such in spaces where people knew me before I transitioned. And it was tough, but ultimately I worked through it and felt amazing. But I still didn't feel complete. I still felt a certain sense of dysphoria, and the dysphoria was centered around my genitalia. Like, through a lot of conversation with my therapist, we arrived at that conclusion. And it was multiple sessions of unpacking and talking about it and just really trying to differentiate whether it is dysphoria or whether it is rooted in my need to fulfill some kind of check mark in the handbook of societal norms. Because I really didn't want to undergo this procedure if I felt like I needed to in order to be accepted as a woman. I really wanted to do this procedure if I felt like it would remedy the remnants of the dysphoria that I still experience, the anxiousness around my genitalia. And let me make something very clear. I have always had dysphoria centered around my genitalia before I even arrived at the fact that I was a woman. I just want to clear that up. So even when I was male, a gay man, I did not particularly enjoy my genitalia or doing things with it. I mean, obviously, like as a adult with hormonal and sexual urges, of course, I had to do things with that particular genitalia. But at the same time, it just didn't feel like it was proper genitalia. That's the only way that I can explain it. Like, I just felt like I don't like this genitalia. And for people who don't have dysphoria around their genitalia, you don't have those thoughts. So I think that is something that obviously with the assistance of medical professionals and really having lots of in-depth conversations about it, you'll arrive at that conclusion. But it wasn't necessarily something that was easy. It's not something that's easy to explain to people that don't have that dysphoria. Yes, so once I arrived at that conclusion, I said, great, I need to do something about it so that I can move on with my life. Like, I feel like this is the final piece of the puzzle in my transition. I need to set up a consultation. So February of, when did I set up my consultation? February of 2024. So now we're fast forwarding. I've been on HRT at this point a little over 2 years. I've had a solid relationship with my therapist and clinician, gender affirming clinician, for about a year to a year and a half. Now I'm seeking the advice of a surgeon. So I set up a consultation. I will put my surgeon's information in the description box below, sharing his information because I had a positive experience. If I did not have a positive experience, I would not be sharing his information. I am based in the DMV area near Washington, D.C., for those who aren't from the area, or D.C. for people who are from the area. So I live right outside of the city, and his office is based in the city. So just to give you some geographical context. But I set up a consultation with him, and now we are moving into the during process, because I would say if this process wasn't as quick as it was, I would lump this in with the pre-process. However, from the consultation to the surgery, 5 months. 5 months, folks. I had my consultation in February of 2024. I had my surgery July of 2024. So yeah, it was a 5-month process for me. When I had my consultation, being the type A girly that I am, I had questions. I had all these things that I wanted to discuss with him. And I come to the appointment, I'm sitting in the room, he comes in like a whirlwind. Like, when I tell you, this man is like the Tasmanian devil. He moves so quickly, talks really quickly. But when I tell you, he gave me the rundown of this process so thoroughly, and just, I felt at ease. Like, I felt comfortable. I felt like this is my surgeon. This is the person who I want to do this process with, because I feel like he has I don't know what service he's delivering with, but he is fine. Ooh, wow. Okay, sorry, I'm distracted. This is what I get filming at the friggin' window. But I wanted this natural light. I know y'all are tired of that studio, that first thing in the morning lighting that I've had on some previous videos. So I wanted to do this particular video in nice natural lighting, because I have a feeling this video is going to be popular. I have a feeling. I don't know why, but I have a hunch that it's going to be a good one on this channel. But anyway, so he discusses the process. He discussed pre, during, and post. That was the breakdown of the conversation and the consultation. So we talked about what kind of things would happen before I have the surgery, and he talked about from surgical preparation to the insurance process. Since at the time I was employed with a company that provided insurance that did cover gender affirming surgery. So I was fortunate to have my surgical procedure covered through insurance, but there are certain steps that I needed to take with that. So I will talk about that briefly. It's going to be different from insurance company to insurance company, so that's why I'm only going to talk about it briefly. But yes, he talked about that. He talked about the kind of things that I would need to do to prepare for the surgery, which you'd be surprised, not a lot. So the insurance portion. For the insurance portion, he was familiar with my insurance. At the time I had Aetna. He felt great about my chances of getting, the approval to be able to get the surgery. So there's a process that you undergo where you provide certain documentation to your insurance company, and they will do a pre-authorization or a pre-approval, in a sense, that basically says that, yes, based on the information that you provided, we are pre-authorizing that we will fund the surgery per the terms of your insurance. So you have to look to see like what your co-pays are and how much of the procedure your insurance company is covering. So I did that. For me, I just needed to provide a letter from a medical professional. So it could be a clinician, it could be a therapist, basically stating that I need this surgery, that I have a mental condition that will require me to need this surgery for my well-being, basically. That's basically the way in which it's put together, termed. So no problem, I got it from my clinician and provided all of the other, demographic information that the office needed, and boom, the authorization came through in April. So it took like maybe 3 or 4 weeks. The office contacted me and let me know like, hey, insurance has pre-authorized you, so you're all set. We have no other requirements for your surgery, so you're all set. You'll show up on surgery day per the information that we provided for you in the document after consultation. So you're all set in terms of paying for the surgery. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is actually happening. And then the other part of the consultation that my surgeon discussed was what I would need to do leading up to the surgery. I know a lot of people think that you need to have laser hair removal. I did not need to have laser hair removal for my procedure. I basically had a vaginoplasty and a vulvoplasty. So basically the front, the vulva, I had a vulva built, and then had the opening built, which is the vaginoplasty. So, and then I think I had like a graft or a couple other things as well, like other subsequent surgical procedures needed to accompany those two, but those are the two main procedures that I had. So yeah, so for my procedures, I did not need laser hair removal. I know that some people have said that their surgeon has required them to get laser hair removal before they do the procedure, which is frustrating, I know, because laser hair removal is a lengthy process. I had laser hair removal on my face, girl. It was over a year of doing that. And unfortunately for me, being a little bit more mature, I had some lighter facial hairs, basically gray facial hairs, that I was not able to have permanently removed with laser hair. I'm gonna have to have electrolysis to have those removed, which is a whole nother beast. Like I could create a whole nother video about my laser hair removal. Maybe I will. Comment down below if you want a video about my laser hair removal process, because that also was a process that I think may be helpful to the girlies, you know? Let me know down below. But yeah, so I didn't need to have laser hair removal. Basically, the only prerequisite as far as what I would need to do to prepare for surgery is to drink that nasty ass shit that you have to drink to clear out your intestines. Magnesium citrate is what I had to have. I know sometimes they give you like a powder and you mix it with water, but my clinician just said you drink a certain amount of magnesium citrate. I forget how much, baby. And you cannot eat the day before. So clear, like just liquids, clear liquids. You could have like water, you could have tea, but you couldn't have anything, any additives in it. Like you could just have just bland ass tea. But everything had to be liquid for that entire day before your surgery. And you had to drink that magnesium citrate, and you had to shit your brains out. So uncomfortable. Like when I tell you, I could not go further than like 10 feet from the toilet. Like luckily the bathroom is attached to my room. I stayed in my room, and we was running back and forth to the bathroom for a good portion of the day. Not fun. I think that is a standard thing with any kind of surgical procedure, particularly if you're going to be getting anything done near your intestines, because they don't want there to be anything in there to come out into your bloodstream and basically poison you. I think that's my dumb layman's explanation for that. But so I ate good the day before. Had a big breakfast, girl. I tore down on some food because I was like, I'm not gonna be able to eat for 24 hours, and I'm gonna have to drink this nasty shit that's gonna make me shit my brains out. But we did that, showed up. So now it is the day of the surgery. You show up bright and early. You fill out a whole bunch of paperwork with your demographic information, insurance information, blah, 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 blah. They need copies of everything. And then you are whisked away to your pre-op room where they prepare you for surgery. So they talk with you about, what you're going to be undergoing. They ask if you have any questions. And for my procedure, they had another preemptively mitigate your pain by giving you an epidural. That's supposed to help with some of the pain management so that you don't have to have so much pain medicine. So they put the epidural in before your procedure. So basically I had a specialist come in, put the epidural into my back, and basically from the waist down, I was numb before I got into the surgical room. In this pre-op room, I could have one loved one. So my mom was there with me. Shout out to my mom. She was there to just like support me, hold my hand, just be there so that I had some sense of comfort before going into a surgery. Now, I never have had any kind of surgical procedures before, so this was all new to me, and I was very anxious on the day of the surgery. Like, the anxiety was on level 1000. But after the epidural was put in, they explained everything to me. They came to haul me away, and off I went. My mom went that way, and I went to the surgical room. In the surgical room, I, again, had never had surgery, so I was in there. I was like, oh my gosh, this looks like Grey's Anatomy. Like, what the hell? It actually looks like that, right? I'm numb from the waist down, and I'm in the bed. They transition you from the bed to the surgical table. And for me, they gave me the anesthesia. They put the thing on my face, and they told me to start counting, basically. And girl, I don't remember counting past like 4 or 5, and I was done. And everything went black. I was asleep for the whole time. I woke up in recovery, and I think the entire surgery took about maybe 3 or 4 hours or something like that. I don't exactly know. I think I went in might have been longer than that. It might have been like 5 or 6 hours, but I just know that by the time I came out, it was dinner time. Yeah, it probably was longer. It might have been like 5 or 6 hours. But by the time I came to, it was dinner time. I was still kind of groggy. I definitely was still pretty like numb from the waist down. Not completely numb, but pretty numb from the waist down. And yeah, she had a coochie. She had a whole vagina. I couldn't see it because that thing was bandaged up. You had like, that thing is bandaged up. You got just plenty of things. It's just like, I know you're kind of eager to be like, what the hell is going on down there? But you don't even get to see her until, when did I see her? I think the first time I actually got to see it, and warning, she's ugly as fuck when you first see it. Like, of course it's swollen and there's lots going on down there, but yeah, she's not so pretty when you first see her. But you don't even get to see her in the hospital. So they brought me dinner. I wasn't very hungry, but I tried to eat. I called loved ones just to let them know, hey, I'm awake, I'm okay. That brought them a lot of just like relief. And they wait for you to be assigned a room to whisk you up to a room. And I was in the hospital for, again, my surgeon explained all of this. Everything that my surgeon explained was exactly how everything transpired. So my surgeon explained that, you know, you would have to, I had my surgery on a Tuesday. He said you would be in the hospital for 2 full days, and then you would be discharged before the weekend. You go home for the weekend with a catheter. So basically there's no peeing because they have you stuffed just to soak up, you know, any of the blood post surgery that the bleeding, anything that you may still be experiencing, soak that up. So you're stuffed, you're packed and stuffed and bandaged up, and then you have a catheter so that you can pee, but you're not actually peeing. Your urine is just going into a bag that you are constantly emptying for a weekend. So in the hospital, but going back to being in the hospital. So in the hospital, in recovery, you just basically laying up in that bed, and they're just giving you medicine, checking your stats. My stats were pretty good. They asked me, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, every time they gave me medicine, like, where was my pain? I will tell y'all now, I am a tough girly. I have a high threshold for pain, but I also will say that my pain never was above a 5, and I didn't get any of the stronger meds. I think they gave me Oxy once, and I actually think that it made me feel ill. Like it made me feel nauseous to the point where I was like, listen, this is making me feel nauseous and my pain is not even that extreme. So like, if I don't have to take the oxy, I don't need it. So they put me on Tylenol. Like, I was just on Tylenol, a stronger dosage of Tylenol, but I was on Tylenol and a few other things just to make sure that, you know, you stay healthy and recover appropriately. So they just give you meds, you're just posted up in there. There are obviously lots of professionals coming in to check to see how things are going. The day before you are discharged, they take the epidural out your back because you need to regain feeling in your legs and you need to start to move around. They will not send you home if you are not able to pass, essentially, a mobility test. They want to ensure that you are stable and that you're able to move around without risk of falling. And they also will do some exercises with you and talk with you about some things that you can do to strengthen your pelvic floor. Because basically, like, your pelvic floor is weak as hell after the surgery. Like, and as a girly, if you're going to be dipping and doing it, you need to have a good pelvic floor. Everyone needs to have a good pelvic floor, but I feel like especially a woman that's dipping and doing it, as Wendy Williams would say, you should have a good pelvic floor. So they do recommend pelvic floor therapy. I did not do it because I didn't feel like really getting into that. I probably should have, so listen to your medical professionals. But yes, and they work with you to get your mobility back. Passed that with flying colors, and I was out of there on Friday. So out of there on Friday, back home, chilling. I didn't have any complications or any issues at all at home. I just was more so irritated the fact that I had to lay around. Because I'm a girly that likes to be on the move, so just laying around is not exciting to me at all. But in recovery, that is what you must do. Now, my surgeon recommended at least 3 to 4 weeks off. He said probably 4 to 6 if possible. I planned for 3. I ended up staying off 4. And the additional week was for a reason. We will get to that. So once I came home over the weekend, you have the catheter, you basically are laid up all day. On the following Monday, you go back to your surgeon's office and he takes the catheter out, takes the packing out, and goes over the process of dilation. Woo! Exciting. Wait, let me go get a prop. BRB. Okay, back. And we are fighting the sun, y'all. Like, I don't know if you can tell the lighting's changing on this video, but the sun is fast fading, so that is my cue to get through the rest of this video so that it's not dark in here, okay? But so yes, you go back to the office, checks out your coochie, he takes the packing out, takes the catheter out, makes sure that you're all good to go, and shows you about dilating. Yes, that is what a dilator looks like. That is the second to largest one. There's a larger one that I currently use, so I'm not showing you the one that I'm currently using, like, even though it's clean, but still, like, no, not showing you the one that I currently use. But I don't know why that's weird, but that's just weird to me. But it's not like I didn't use this one before, but anyway. Yes, so it shows you the dilation process, and maybe you have to put your feet up in those stirrups. Shout out to the cis women who experience putting your feet up in them stirrups and having somebody all up in your coochie from adolescence on, okay? Because it is not a comfortable experience at all, but you have to do it. So, shows you the dilation process, and you are on your merry way. It's like, great. We will check in with you, you know, I think to start, it was like maybe every few weeks, and then as time progressed, it was less frequent. It was like 8 weeks, but I did regular follow-ups with my surgeon from, I think the last visit that I had with him was in November, so that was what, like 4 or 5 months. post-surgery, and I think I had like maybe 2 or 3 visits with him post-surgery. He just checks everything out to make sure that, you know, everything is healing appropriately. If you have any granulation, he takes care of that during the visit. So they use silver nitrate to basically castrate off any granulation tissue that may grow. And you want to get rid of that granulation tissue because that granulation tissue, which is basically just overhealing, your body is just like overcompensating and overhealing, so it's giving you excess tissue in places that are healing. All of my granulation was externally. You have internal granulation that may require an additional surgical procedure, but I didn't experience that, just externally. And he just quickly did it with silver nitrate. On my very last visit, he was like, you really don't need to come back. He said, you're healing really well, but he's like, if you experience any more granulation, he was like, you can order silver nitrate yourself. And he was like, I can confidently say that you can't hurt tissue that's not granulation tissue. But like, if you're using the silver nitrate yourself, it's like, it's almost impossible for you to castrate or burn non-granulation tissue. So he told me to just get some silver nitrate, and if you notice any granulation tissue on your own, he was like, feel free to go in there and to silver nitrate it yourself. He was like, I think that you are healing really well and probably won't experience that, but he said if you do, you should be fine. But if you want to come back, you can come back. It would just be another visit, which means money. I had insurance, so the visits were just like copay. But if you don't have insurance, think about that. It costs money every time you see that surgeon, okay? He want his coin. So anyway, yes, the recovery process for me felt long as fuck, but at the same time, it was fairly smooth. I had one setback. I had an issue one night. I went to go pee like normal. I've been, at this point, this was 3 weeks into my post recovery. I went to go pee at night like I normally would, and I peed, but when I finished peeing, I still felt like I could hear a trickle hitting the toilet, and I was just like, well, that's funny, I'm not peeing anymore, what's trickling, right? And I look into the toilet and I see blood. I panicked. I was just like, what the hell? So I'm like panicking, like what's bleeding? And I'm like getting up, and it's just like bleeding everywhere, right? Essentially, I start to move around and I'm still bleeding. Long story short, I had a, what do they call those? Contusion? I'll pop up here if that's not what it is. I'll pop up what it is here. But essentially, it's just like, specifically post-surgery, you may have these pockets of places that are healing that, when disturbed, may bleed. So it wasn't anything that was wrong with the actual surgical area. It just is a part of the healing process. I just disturbed. Oh, it's not a contusion. It was a hemotoxin. Again, I'm gonna pop the word up here as to what it is, but it's a common thing that happens after a surgical procedure, any kind of surgical procedure, where you can experience, you know, excess bleeding. For me, I called the ambulance. Like, I woke my mom up. At this point, I had bled out a lot to the point where I was a little bit lightheaded. So I decided to lay so that I wouldn't bleed anymore and call an ambulance to take me to the hospital. They didn't know what to do. They were just like, we're not really experienced with this particular type of procedure and don't want to disturb anything. We just want to make sure that you're not bleeding, and we want to test your blood levels to make sure that you don't need blood. I didn't need blood, and they were able to stop the bleeding, and I was on my merry way. When I went back to my surgeon for my visit the following week, he explained to me what that was and how it's normal. It's scary, but it's normal post-surgery, and that I did all the right things, and that everything is healing fine, and that no worries. But that was my sign to take another week off, just to make sure that everything was okay. So I took an additional week off. So in total, I took 4 weeks off, and then I was back at work. Now let's talk about dilation. Dilation is essential to ensure that the vaginal opening stays open. You are given a certain amount of depth surgically, but you almost immediately lose some of that depth because of healing. But in order to not lose more of that depth and width, you have to dilate. You start with a smaller dilator and you move up the dilators over time until you get to some people, my surgeon was impressed that I was on the largest one. He was like, a lot of people don't even make it to that one. He was like, but you made it to that one, so great for you. And yeah, during the initial, that first month, I felt like I was dilating as a part-time job. Like literally 3 times a day for like 30 to 45 minutes each time. Yes, you must dilate for that long and that often in order to make sure that the vaginal opening stays open. And even dilating as often as I was, I still lost depth. I'm satisfied with the amount of depth that I have to this day, but you have to know in your mind that you are going to lose some depth. It's just going to happen. That's a part of the healing process. But yeah, you will have to dilate for the rest of your life. Yes, I still dilate even being more than 1 year post-op. I dilate like once, maybe twice a week at this point, and it's just, I just grab a good book, put something on YouTube, whatever, and just do it. It's not a big deal. It's not painful. It's not uncomfortable at this point. It just is a part of making sure that you maintain your depth and width, and that your body doesn't try to heal, doesn't try to close that girly up, because she got work to do, okay? So we don't want to close her up at all. So yeah, that was the during and a little bit of the post. Now I want to talk about post in terms of just like a couple of other additional things that I experienced after surgery and life now. So also a part of the post surgery process is you will continue to heal and have things come out of that girl, okay? You might have some blood and some other things come out of there, discharge and tissue. I didn't experience like a lot of tissue. I had a couple of times where I was just like, I have no idea what this is on this pad. But you will have to wear pads, girl. Yes. Welcome to womanhood, right? So you have to wear pads. I wore pads for about 3 months. They usually say that after about 8 weeks, between 8 and 12 weeks, you should be good to go and not have to wear pads anymore. But I took it to the 12 weeks because I still was experiencing, I tried to stop at 8 weeks, and girl, I was messing up underwear and clothes and stuff, and it was not cute at all. So I said, let me put these pads back on and stop playing. But yes, that is another thing that you will have to experience. And then also just mentally making the shift, mentally dealing with the caring for new genitalia. It's a completely different ball game. It's a lot. I talked to my mom a lot about how much it like men having the audacity to ever try it with women when women deal with this is like, it's crazy to me. It's crazy. But yes, you will also want to make sure that you are mentally taking care of yourself and that you have a good tribe, a good community, a good support system to be able to kind of talk out things that may be, troubling or difficult in making the transition, right? But overall, my SRS experience has been phenomenal. I am healthy. I am happy. My kitty cat is great. She is doing all the great things, and I don't have any regrets about my surgery. But as you could see from the 20 minutes of me talking about all the things I did leading up to the consultation, there's a lot of work to be done before you even consider having SRS. So that is my experience. This is a really long video, so if you made it to the end, it was a real one, girl, and I'm glad that you enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit the like button on the way out and subscribe if you like my personality or you want more content like this. You know, everything on the channel is not trans oriented, but obviously it is a part of who I am, so there will be content about those experiences. It is officially dark and the camera and the battery on my camera is about to die, so yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up right here. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you guys on my next video. Bye.